So welcome everyone to What are the Signs of Work-Related Burnout? What you need to know with our guest speaker, Julie Holden. This session is hosted by the City of Mississauga, presented by the Mississauga Business Enterprise Centre. A little bit about MBEC. We are part of the Economic Development Office here at the City of Mississauga, and we are focused on supporting our small business owners. We have consultants on staff, we have resources, we have a numerous amount of things for you, and we are your central source for information. Check us out at mississauga.ca/MBEC. So to let you know that we are all working virtually to support you, including all presentations such as this webinar today, and our programs are being run virtually, as well as one-on-one consultations. So if you have any questions, if you go to our website and you can't find what you're looking for, please feel free to contact our team. We're also on social at Mississauga EDO, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And when you do go to mississauga.ca, it takes you over to our microsite, which is thefutureisunlimited.ca. And if you scroll to the bottom, you'll see all our social media links, including where you can subscribe to our newsletter. And some of our upcoming webinars are today's session, but we have how to engage with your Instagram audience. We have a whole series that is continuing on digital marketing, so please check that out. If you have any legal questions, we have a lawyer coming on May the 12th to talk with our attendees, as well as we have the Business Continuity Awareness Week coming up, and we have a leading expert in that area who's going to talk about how to create a simple plan specifically for small business owners. And we have a team of experts coming on May 20th, one of which is a business continuity expert and an entrepreneur herself. So if you have any questions about that, or aren't even sure about what business continuity is, this is the time to come. And then I have a session, Website 101, that is on May 27th. So if you're getting started with your website, we'll take you through some steps. And I also have email marketing coming up. There's a bunch of them. So I really do encourage you to subscribe to our newsletter as well as join us on social. And if you missed any of our recordings, this is where you'll find them. So there is a wide range of stuff that we've been doing since last July. So there's a whole library, including how to write a business plan specific for industry, our digital marketing, and including Julie's previous webinar, which I have dropped into the chat. Instagram is relatively new for us. So if you don't currently follow us on Instagram, we hope you'll head on over at Mississauga EDO and follow us and engage with us. We have stories and comments and information, and we look forward to meeting you there. So without further delay, I'd like to introduce our speaker, Julie Holden. She has an extensive background of over 25 years delivering health and productivity solutions to her clients in a wide variety of industries. Principal at one of Canada's largest consulting firms, Willis Towers Watson, where she led its health and productivity practice in Ontario, and was also the practice leader of the absence and disability practice at both Buck Consultants and Morneau Chappelle. She's certified by the Canadian Mental Health Association as a psychological health and safety advisor to workplaces and a registered practitioner with the Human Resource Professionals Association of Canada. A wealth of experience and expertise to bring to us today's topic on supporting us with work-related stress, especially as entrepreneurs. It's a difficult time. And Julie, we thank you and welcome you today.
Well, thanks so much, Laura. I'm really looking forward to the session, and I appreciate being here, and welcome to those who are joining us today. So yeah, thank you. I've been doing an awful lot of these as it is such a difficult time, you know, for everyone. I have been working in this area though for over 25 years, as Laura mentioned, and workplace mental health has been a topic that's been increasing in the last, decade or 15 years, because it has been recognized as something that should be addressed and help employees with it and everything. Um, so let's take a look at what I wanted to talk to you about today. And again, if there's something else, please let me know. So I won't, read all of these out, but basically I want to talk about, what is mental health when we talk about that? How does it affect us as business owners and entrepreneurs or employees? And what are some steps that we can take to actually improve our mental health, to maintain good mental health throughout, so that we don't, become ill and potentially, have to miss work and that kind of thing. So there are some statistics and things like that I'll talk to you about, just in terms of framing what this issue really is and what it looks like. But then we'll get past that and into some real tools and resources and things like that that hopefully are meaningful for folks. So let's move forward. So if we think of mental health, it's often explained or talked about in a negative capacity. It's usually, mental health is usually, if someone's talking about it, it's not a good thing. It's like it's someone is experiencing challenges or issues. But actually, there's good mental health, and then there's mental health that's on a scale. So it could be not so good one day, but then improving and or anywhere on this continuum. But if we talk about positive or good mental health, we're talking about things like, you're in the flow, you're feeling good, you're productive, you're able to get things done. Things like you have good self-esteem, and you're kind of looking at the world in a positive light as much as possible, knowing that things go up and down. I've got there, it's a springboard for, thinking, being creative, all of those kinds of things. Because if you think about it, if you're really stressed and, anxious or alternatively, if you're really depressed and down, feeling low, you can't be creative. You can't work on your strategy for your company or move that project forward. You're just kind of trying to get through the day, and which is not a great thing, obviously. You're not resilient. But this is a positive sense of well-being, and I've got there also that it's spiritual well-being is also a very important factor of mental health. And spirituality means, of course, different things for different people. It could be organized religion for one person and participating in their church and all those wonderful things. And for someone else, it could be, a walk in the woods or, a hike, somewhere down by the water, along the water or something like that. It could be, having your morning, a cup of tea or something and just really feeling spiritual in that moment and maybe meditating or something like that. So, but all of these things are very, you're feeling pretty positive and you're growing throughout your life because you want to always be, we like to be learning and growing. So that's when we talk about positive mental health, those are some of the things that we're talking about. And then if we take a look on the other side, so it's an interruption of that kind of thinking, and it gets into a wide variety of things that can be a combination of different types of disorders. It could be like I've got there mood disorders. Depression is the most commonly known mood disorder. So the technical term is major depression, typically. It's also disorders such as anxiety disorder, also known as generalized anxiety disorder. There's different things within all of this. So if someone is depressed or feeling down, it could also be in reaction to something. And of course, we're all going through something right now that we're reacting to, which is very normal. And again, it can be on a continuum. So they call that reactive depression. And so and it can be in combination. Often if someone has anxiety, they may also have depression. There's also something called dysthymia. And it's kind of a funny word to say, dysthymia, but it's actually a low level of depression. But it's unfortunate because a lot of people just go through their lives like that. They have dysthymia, but they don't feel like they can still work, they can still, kind of live their lives and go out and socialize, but they feel low and they feel it's a low level of depression. So they experience this throughout their lives, which is too bad because if with the right care and treatment, they could recover. So these are some of the things. And of course, when we have challenges with mental health or we have a mental illness, it interferes with all of the good things that are on the left side of my screen, which is positive mental health. So we are going to talk about some ways to overcome this as we move forward. But let's take a look at some numbers for a minute, just in terms of framing this. And just for context, these are all pre-COVID numbers. So 1 in 5 Canadians experience a mental issue or illness in any given year, but actually it's 1 in 3 in our lifetime. So in our lifetimes, 1 out of every 3 people will become ill as a result of mental health challenges. That's another thing I just want to mention before we move on. I do say mental illness because it is illness. It's just like, someone with a bad back, or, if someone is experiencing a chronic illness like um, multiple sclerosis, for example, or something like that. Some people don't like to use the word illness because it sounds like stigma, like, no, I don't have a mental illness, So we're going to talk about stigma in a few minutes as well, but I just wanted to raise that because sometimes words are very powerful. And, there's nothing wrong with having a mental illness. It's the same as having a physical illness. Anyways, moving on. So depression is the leading cause of disability worldwide. And I remember a few years ago, the World Health Organization predicted that by 2020, depression would be the global cause of disability, and like the #1 cause. And sure enough, it was. By 2020, so last year, it became the leading cause of depression. In any given week, over 500,000 Canadians can't go to work because of mental challenges or issues or illness. And that's a huge number. Again, that was pre-COVID. I'm expecting that when they update these statistics at some point, that these will be higher, of course, just because of what we're going through with COVID. So 1 in 3 disability claims are now mental health related, but it represents 70% of the cost. And I only consult in 2 areas, and I only ever have. It's disability management and mental health, because the 2 really do go hand in hand. If you look at that statistic, it's 70% of the cost. And that's very meaningful to me because if you think of all of the illnesses that there are and all of the reasons people do become disabled, either for a short period of time or a longer period of time, like, cancers, heart conditions, bad backs, broken legs, everything combined, mental illnesses have really overshot all of that. So it's quite significant. One of the things we're really talking about today is burnout. And the next one is it was about 2 or 3 years ago now that the World Health Organization, who is doing an awful lot of work in this area actually around mental health globally, which is wonderful, they recognized burnout as, they call it, an occupational phenomenon. So it's a technical term, but it's really significant because burnout is only as a result of the workplace. So it's not, a combination of things going on around us or, different things in our families or our home lives or whatever that might be causing, stress and anxiety and that kind of thing, burnout. It's only as a result of the workplace. So that is quite significant. And it's actually why employers have been doing workplace mental health initiatives now for quite some time. And a lot of them are planning on doing more and more in the years to come. So speaking of COVID, 42 of Ontario's adults have increased their substance or gambling since the pandemic started. And that can be, having that glass of wine earlier in the day and, unfortunately continuing with that, or people are gambling. It can be different things and all sorts of different addictions like, well, there's, aside from drugs and alcohol, there's also, online, like people scrolling and spending way too much time and becoming addicted to it all day, being online, and those kinds of things. So, of course, many of us, the statistic is 81% of people have reported negative impacts actually to their mental health as a result of COVID, which isn't really surprising knowing what we've been facing for quite some time now. So in terms of, I just want to move, there we go. In terms of what entrepreneurs experience, and I'm an entrepreneur too, so I'm in the same boat as you in terms of being a business owner, for those of you that are. So this is pre-COVID, so 3 in 5 entrepreneurs report feeling depressed at least once a week. And I would suggest, of course, and I think we're all thinking that this is higher now. 40% are stressed by the fear of loss. And so, losing or failing at their businesses. And that's a real fear for people. And burnout, and of course, feelings of loneliness. Because a lot of people, we start our businesses and it's very exciting and we have a lot to offer and that kind of thing. And then we are on our own, and so sometimes there's feelings of loneliness that could really seep in and prevent people from moving forward, and maybe they start to feel a little depressed as a result of that and that kind of thing. So that's what a lot of entrepreneurs report feeling as it relates to mental health. So how does it affect your business? Because it can really affect your business. And even I, a little while back, didn't really think of it in that context. We all would know that if we became ill physically, even if it was a broken ankle or something, so maybe we couldn't drive, or if, unfortunately, we became ill with a chronic illness, we would probably know pretty quickly that, and we'd be concerned that this could affect our business. But I don't think people think as much about the fact that mental health also affects our business, positively or negatively. So if we don't take care of our mental health, it can lead to these kinds of things like procrastination. If you think of it, if you've got something to do and you're down or you're not feeling well, or your anxiety is just so high that you just can't get it done, you might think, okay, I'm going to do that next Wednesday and I'll be feeling better by then. I know I'll just get a few good nights sleep and I'll be okay by then. Of course, illnesses don't work that way. They don't just disappear typically and without any treatment. And so Wednesday comes, of course, and it's not done. You're not feeling any better. So, and this goes on. And the anxiety often increases over time because you've got to get something done and you haven't done it yet. So the anxiety builds. And so we have to deal with that. So procrastination, inability to make decisions is the next one I have there. And that's typically, that happens all the time. You're not able to make those important decisions to move forward, whether it's delivering something for a client or whether it's working on your strategy for your company or whether you want to purchase that advertising or, get your website done. You're not able to do it because you can't think, you can't focus on it. You can't think clearly. So you can't make those decisions. I was just talking a minute ago about unhealthy diversions. And so, yeah, some people say, okay, I can't deal with this right now. I'm just going to, surf. I'm going to go on Instagram or I'm going to go on Twitter and see what's going on, or I'm going to go on Facebook. So, and that's just one unhealthy diversion, if it's too long, of course. And so that's something that people do. Of course, we're less productive and we can often deliver poor quality of work. So it's like, okay, I got it done. It's not normally what I would deliver to my clients or my customers or, I even dealing with my suppliers or whatever, but in delivery of work, it's of less quality. It's not what you'd normally do, but at least you got it done, people are thinking. And here, I'll just hand it over now. So not what you want to do. But the original excitement and plans start to erode, unfortunately. And I talked about this also, but it's like, we are excited when we start our businesses. And it's like, oh, I'm going to do this, this, and this, and I'm going to offer these services or this product or, whatever it is. And I'm so excited. But, if you're not well physically, but we're talking about mental health today, if you're not well mentally, then, it starts to go away. It starts to seep away. And that's very unfortunately. Of course, ultimately, it can lead to a lot of loss. People can lose their businesses. They can lose customers if you have employees, or if you're planning on having employees in the future. No one wants to work in a company like that. And so employees will move on as well. So loss of revenue, of course. So these are things that can happen if we don't take care of our mental health. And again, I didn't really think of it in that context myself before, but these are actually things that happen. So let's talk about stress for a moment. We're all going through quite a bit of things that are stressful. So how do we tell if it's too high? And these are signs of burnout. Um, Irritability. And so we're not talking about somebody, like most of us are not irritable. We don't go through our lives irritable and, grouchy or crabby, whatever term you want to use. But, we don't go through our lives like that. We may be thinking of someone's great aunt or something that tends to be, a little, crotchety or whatever the words are. But most of us are not. And it's not healthy if we are. And we probably need some help. But irritability is usually a change too. So these are changes in behavior. So if somebody is typically, fine, or, we all have ups and downs, of course, and there are conflicts, that arise in life from time to time, but we typically can manage through these things in a balanced way and in a collaborative way. So if somebody is suddenly flying off the handle, or they're just irritable on a regular basis, then that is definitely a sign. Of course, then they get into conflict with family, friends, coworkers, that kind of thing. And again, this is somebody, or if it's ourselves, that, we are not typically like this, but we're just on edge. So high levels of fear and worry. And this is like, ruminating, you're ruminating over something, you're afraid, you're just, it's always there. It just kind of doesn't go away. And so that's a sign that there's too much stress and that you could be leading to burnout. And I'll talk a little bit more about what burnout is. It's all of these, it's some of these things, or all of these things, or even one or two of these things, but it really can lay you flat so that you can't function, and you actually you can lose feelings, like you're just kind of there, and you're going through the motions, but you're not yourself at all. You're not getting happy about anything. You're just kind of numb. And of course, no one wants to feel like that. And that's severe, because then you have to get up out of that, which takes a little time and effort, of course, but people can get better. So that's a good thing. And that I will talk about it more as we go through this. So trouble sleeping. I've had trouble sleeping through COVID. I didn't used to have trouble sleeping, but it's a lot going on, and for all of us. And it's a lot, when we have our businesses, and we're trying to deal with what's happening in the world. So I don't know how many people, are having problems sleeping. I do have something that's really helped me a lot that I'll share with you in the toolkit, but definitely that's one thing. Fatigue is a different thing, and that is when you are getting a good night's sleep, and but you're still fatigued. You feel tired, you feel worn out. You just can't really seem to get through the day, or you can't wait for the day to be over because you just feel tired. So that is something also that's a trigger and a sign that something's not right. Of course, that leads to having problems concentrating. You're unable to get your work done and be productive and, move forward with things. There could be the uptake in drug or alcohol use, as I mentioned. It can also be physical symptoms, like headaches. It can be things like trembling. Some people start trembling. if they get very anxious. And you've heard of people, or maybe you've experienced this, where you break out in a rash. You got a rash on your arms suddenly, or you're broken out in hives. Your body tells you things. It really does. And you might have shortness of breath. So these things can lead to very serious physical illnesses. Um, Physical and mental are really connected. There is no separating them. And and this is actually something that happens in workplaces now, is that these things were always siloed. So there's now joint committees that work on health and physical and mental health and safety. So psychological health in the workplace, as well as physical health in the workplace, because one does affect the other. If someone becomes mentally ill or has mental health challenges, they can become physically ill. Similarly, if someone becomes physically ill, a good example of that is if someone experiences a heart condition, a heart attack, they often become depressed. The incidence of depression are quite high in people who have experienced that. So, so those things are very important to pay attention to. The next one is self-isolating, and you might say, well, we're all kind of self-isolating right now, and that's true, but we're all isolating. But even in COVID, you may be invited to different things. I mean, you're here today, so that's great. Some people are invited to different webinars. They're invited to hangouts, with their friends or family. I know during during COVID, my husband and I attended a memorial for someone who passed away a couple months back with family. And so we did that over Zoom. And then another thing, actually, which was a cheerful thing, this past weekend, we attended a birthday party for my husband's uncle who turned 90, and he lives in the States. But there were people all over, Florida, Kingston, Ontario, all different places in Ontario. And so we attended that by Zoom. And so I assume you've been invited to different things as well during this period of time. But for someone who is extremely stressed or is on the verge of burnout or is burnt out, they will not want to participate in anything. So they'll say, no, I'll catch up with you later. Sorry, I can't make it. I'm busy that day. They'll consistently do this so that actually they are by themselves all the time or a lot of the time. And they're just not participating in life. And so that's what I mean by that. Of course, pre-COVID, it's just, not going out, attending things, skipping social events, skipping work events and social events there. So, but even during this time, some people are isolating way too much and generally not taking care of ourselves. So if someone's burnt out or has high stress levels, I hear of people who are skipping the shower, they're not grooming themselves. They're not eating healthy or getting any kind of physical activity at all. They're not doing any of those things. They're not doing their hobbies that they like. So they're really not taking care of themselves. They're like down and it's visible in some ways, unless they're self-isolating. So these are real signs. So yeah, if anyone wants to put in the chat anything that they're experiencing, I mean, it's good to share. It's all anonymous anyways, but I certainly have had problems sleeping. So that's something that I've experienced as a result of this. But I did find something that helps a lot. So anyways, if there's nothing in the chat, we'll move on. But if anyone has experienced any of these things and you'd like to share, please feel free to do that. Okay, we'll move on. So again, if you want to throw anything in the chat here, please feel free. So where should we be around workplace stress? Some people say a little bit of stress is good, it keeps us motivated, it keeps us up, it keeps us moving forward and all that. I like the concept. I don't really like the term stress though. Stress is a negative thing. So I like terms like, I'm motivated, I'm up for it, I'm jazzed, I can't wait, I'm excited, other terms, that make you think of those kinds of things. Um, and so a little bit of that is good, because if you take a look at this on the low side, if you don't have any of that, but you're trying to move your business forward, it's a little bit in conflict with that, because we do want to feel excited. We do want to feel, up for it, and can't wait to get to the next level, or can't wait to deliver this product or service, or open the store, or open the restaurant, or keep things going, put something new on the menu, those kinds of things that get us really excited about having our own businesses. And so if you're way over there on the dark green, I would suggest that, um, that's not the best place to be. Anywhere up here in the lighter green and the gold color, and a little bit over into the orange, is healthy levels of enthusiasm, I'll say. But and we typically want to be around there, because that's where we're, you get in the flow of work, and you're productive, all those wonderful things we talked about in the beginning. You've got your self-esteem is in a good place. You're feeling resilient, and you're getting things done, and you're feeling good about it, typically. So if you're anywhere over here in the mid orange, or over here in the red, that indicates that that someone is unwell, and they probably need some help at that point, which is a good thing. They can get help. One thing I'll say about that is, and I'm not going to keep throwing statistics out there, but it's good to know that over 80% of people who seek help, who have and treatment, just like we would for physical health, people who seek treatment for mental health become well again. They get better. So it's at least 80% of people. So that's good to know. And typically it's cognitive behavioral therapy, or some kind of talk therapy, whatever the right one is, and a form of medication. And they found that the two of those that go together, there's extremely high success rates. And so people can overcome this. So I'm typically in here, in the gold zone, a little bit maybe over here from time to time, and I try to use my own, advice, bring myself back, every now and then. Maybe I need a little bit of more enthusiasm, but then I think of something and try to bring myself back here, because I don't want to be, unhealthy. So is there anyone that is putting anything in the chat around where they feel they are? Good thing to think about in any event. So here's some things where we can manage our stress, and make sure we don't get into the burnout phase, and that level of stress. Yes, hi, Michelle. And it can fluctuate, absolutely. It goes up and down. It goes, there's a continuum, and it depends on what's going on in our lives, and we can manage that. Orange to red, yes. So hopefully there will be some things here that can help today, in terms of that. So thank you. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else before we move on? Okay. So here's 8 ways to prevent that from happening. And I'm going to talk about more ways later on, but this is particular to stress. So pay attention to those body stress signals. They are telling us something. And if we ignore those signals, then it can get worse, obviously. Both our stress levels can get worse because we're not doing anything about it. And also our the impact of the physical phenomenon that is presented itself, is not getting any better either. So pay attention if you have any of those things that I mentioned, or other things that you may be experiencing. Deal with the stress head on. And these are things we can control. So I'm not talking about things we can't control. It's out of our control, can't do anything about it. No sense trying to. But those things that we can control. So there's things like maybe you want to call a customer or a client, and you haven't gotten around to it yet. And maybe it's going to be a difficult conversation, or maybe it's a difficult conversation with an employee if you have any employees, or a supplier or something like that. Or maybe it's getting that project started that you wanted to start and you haven't quite gotten around to it. So um, so our stress levels tend to rise when there's something like that going on. It's on our minds and we want to get it done, but we haven't done it yet. If there's something like that you can control and you take care of it, your stress levels will start to go down right away. As it relates to that, you think, oh, I got that done. That's great. I feel so much better. I've even done that. It's like, you know, I needed to get this thing done. And, it's like, okay, I need to get it done. I need to get it done. And I finally get it done. It's like, okay, why didn't I do that before? I feel so much better. My stress levels start coming down right away. So that's what I mean by that. Where you can control it, deal with it and get it taken care of. You'll feel better for it. Take systematic breaks. And there's a lot of evidence out there. We all know if we take a break, we feel better. Usually our stress will come down, depending on if we took care of things. But, there's a lot of evidence out there now about taking systematic breaks. And even if you take a 5-minute break throughout, 2 or 3 times throughout the day, and it's a real break. It's not a break where, you're looking on Twitter to see what the latest COVID numbers are or something like that. It's a real break, whatever that means to you. Could be laying down, for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15. It could be going for a little walk. It could be doing some deep breathing. And we're going to chat about that in a few minutes as well. But whatever it is, there's a lot of information and research out there now that show that it really is impactful for our brains. It really does work. So that's something that we can do. A lot of these things, there's some of them are easy and they work in the moment as well. The next one is that it's something that you can do in the moment. If you're feeling irritable or you're dealing with a conflict situation, you can do these things so that you don't overreact and make your stress level and make the situation worse. So take a step back from it. Always just take a step back. We've all either done or heard of other people doing, hopefully it's the latter, where you see something and you shoot off an email, you're getting this email done, you're angry, you're irritated, and you press send. Well, almost every single time people regret it, and it doesn't help with stress. It usually makes the situation more stressful. So take a step back, don't react, take a few deep breaths. And I wonder how many people here do practice deep breathing or, just taking a few deep breaths. Let me know if you do. I do, and it helps an awful lot. And again, this is something that there's tons of research on, and it's something that you can do very quickly. So you can just breathe in, hold it at the top, and then breathe out. And usually when you breathe out, if you can breathe out for a little longer, so say 1 or 2 seconds longer than you breathed in for when you took your breath, then that is extremely impactful. And if you do that 2 or 3 times slowly, yes, good. I see someone does it several times a day. And does it work for you? Do you find that successful? Yeah, it does. It does work. We can feel it working. Aside from all the experts telling us it works, we can feel it working. And it doesn't take long. You can even, if there's a situation, even if we've got our kids at home or, our pets or something, or different things, our husbands or our wives, whatever they are, we need to even take a break. You can even just go in another room, take a few deep breaths, and then go back to the situation. You'll feel so much better. Go for a walk. That always helps. Yes, good advice. Um, Go for a walk if you can. Sometimes it's just a 5 or 7 or 8 minute walk. Like sometimes we think these things take so much time, but they need not. And again, that's another thing that there's been a lot of good research on is that, we used to think even working out, I have to go to the gym or whatever, I have to work out for an hour or whatever. You don't. You can do it in, 7 or 8 minutes here or there, and it really, really is impactful. Um, So anyways, the last little point I have here on irritability, if you're feeling irritable because of high levels of stress or burnout, then, or getting into the phase of burnout, then do these things and then come back and think about it. Think of ways you may have handled it before, and come back with a collaborative approach. The next one is setting healthy boundaries. And this one works really well also. Because, if we think of it, we've got things coming at us from all these different directions. We've got maybe kids, we've got a spouse or a partner, we've got the business, we've got clients or customers, we may have a pet, we've got other expanded family, we've got friends, we've got a lot coming at us. And if we don't set healthy boundaries, those folks, even like not meaning to, can make our stress levels go really high because, someone's texting you. Somebody's, where's this at home? Or somebody's, can I borrow the car? That kind of thing. Someone else is sending you an email. A client is calling you. You're trying to set different things for your work, a schedule or, whatever it is. You're trying to move forward a project, all these things. And if you don't set boundaries, and sorry, let me explain a little bit more what I mean by that. So boundaries, you do it in a positive way. Sometimes people have said to me, well, that kind of sounds rude. Like, are you being rude? No, not at all. You just say, okay, well, I'll get back to you, after 5 o'clock. I really want to talk to you about that. I'm so excited to talk to you about that, but I'll get back to you at 5 o'clock. Or if it's somebody texting you, say, sorry, I can't really take texts between 2 and 4 or 9 and 6, whatever it is, but I'm going to get back to you when I can. Maybe we could chat on Saturday. It's those kinds of things, but it's doing it in a positive way. But you have set healthy boundaries around yourself so you can focus on the things that are healthy for you and letting you move forward with your business. And also things that make you feel good too and make your stress levels remain within healthy levels, like working on hobbies and things like that. So, and it doesn't mean you're never available to anyone, but you set boundaries that work for you, and then you're able to move forward and be more control in your life and in your world. So that's something that's also really helpful. So sort of in line with that is routine. And, as humans, apparently we really need a routine. And that can be different things for different people. So that can be, a fairly rigid routine for someone. And it's like, I don't really like to get out of my routine type thing, or they get very anxious. So that's okay. That works for them. For other people, it's like, okay, this is my routine, but I need a little flexibility within it. It's okay if, I go outside of it for different things from time to time and that kind of thing. So whatever level of routine works for you, try to maintain it, because that will help with stress a great deal. Focus on what you can control. I'm going to talk about that in a minute, a little bit more relating to resiliency. But basically, focus on the things you can control and try not to control them because it will raise your stress levels. Focus on the things you can control. I know that you've probably heard all of these things before, but these are things that have been researched and really do work for us around reducing stress so that we can maintain, a level that is not unhealthy in our lives. And the next one is seek help. And I can't stress that enough, actually. It means different things to different people again. So for some people, seeking help might be, okay, this is how I'm feeling. I want to do some more research on this. I want to learn more about this. I want to see, okay, where am I actually falling within this? And then maybe based on that, they'll take different steps. But first, it's like, okay, I want to know more about it. For other people, they're going to reach out to their GP. It's like, okay, I want to talk to my doctor. I just really want to talk to my doctor about this and let him or her know how I'm feeling. For other people, there's a lot of great tools online now. They may want virtual care. And there are some in the toolkit that I'll share. So I just want to reach out to this company. I'm going to get connected to a mental health professional, and I'm going to start talking to a mental health professional and get some treatment for it. Start talking about it and how I'm feeling. So whatever it is, there's self-help groups, all kinds of things. If you're over into the red, or if you're partway down the orange there, in stress, related to work or not related to work, see what you can do about that so that you can feel better and have not be ill from mental health challenges. One thing that I like to say to folks too is sometimes, we do feel overwhelmed. And so if you're feeling overwhelmed on a certain day, because sometimes, it fluctuates, as was mentioned earlier, it does fluctuate. And if you're just having a bad day once in a while, which we do, focus on one thing. You can get up in the morning, just write it down. It's like, okay, I'm just going to focus on this today. Nothing else. I'm going to keep this top of mind. One task, one day at a time, one thing. Sorry, something popped up in the chat and I think I missed that. If it's there.
I will check for you, Julie. Just
Thank you. But yeah, just this is one thing. And so there's an interesting concept, and I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called the Pomodoro method, and it's really cool. It's and if there's anyone here of Italian descent, you may know Pomodoro is Italian for tomato. And I don't know if you ever had one of those, but years ago I had one of those tomatoes in the kitchen that you'd wind up as a timer. And so it was a tomato timer. You just turn it, and you would use it for timing things in the kitchen when you're cooking. So a gentleman was trying to he used that for cooking. And so he decided he was feeling overwhelmed. He needed to get some work done. And so he used this timer because he thought, I don't feel like doing this. From time to time, we just don't feel like doing something, right? But he said, okay, I don't want to do this, but I need to get it done. I can do anything for 25 minutes though. If I know I only have to do it for 25 minutes, I can sit and do that. I can sit and just work on that. So that's what he did. And so he put this timer on. He worked on it for 25 minutes. He got a lot done, because actually when you're focusing on something for 25 minutes, you can actually accomplish a lot. So it's really, really cool. And so, long story short, this became a method. It is now a method. If you want to Google it and read about it, it's really neat. There are apps you can download, and or you can also just set your kitchen timer if you want. But the concept actually is that you work for 25 minutes, you take a 4-minute break. I don't know why exactly 4, but anyways, this is it, 4 minutes. You set the timer again and work for 25 minutes, and you do this 3 or 4 times. Then you take like a 45-minute or an hour break. And so that's more about that method. But anyways, if you're interested, you can check that out, the Pomodoro method. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, focus on one thing, you might want to check that out.
So, Julie, we may have to get the attendee to respond again, but I'll try and bring this forward. It's the challenge, I think, is setting up time to discuss with people, because quite often they'll get busy at that time, and then trying to get back with them if they're busy double impacts that first interruption, and then you have to make yourself available. And so when you're reaching out for people to support you, or even for work, right? Like things like that, it just is a challenge. I don't know if maybe you have ideas on how to manage that kind of situation.
I don't know if I'm understanding it correctly. Is it like scheduling, and so it becomes stressful scheduling, and yeah, so you can't seem to get folks together at the same time. Yeah, that is absolutely a challenge. And there's different tools, like there's those automated calendars that people are using now. I don't know if you'd ever consider something like that, but it is time consuming, and it can be stressful and frustrating when you're trying to get a bunch of people together. If it's in the work context, if that's what I'm understanding, and you're trying to do that, like there's Calendly, and there's other ones where when you send a note to someone, you say, if you've got this tool, please feel free to set up a time with me. And so they go on your calendar, they have access through this tool, and you've set aside open time on it that they can choose, and then they set it up, and it actually is all automated. So that's something to check out if that's what you mean by that. So many apps and tools today that actually some of them are quite helpful, some of them are not, but some of them are. When I call back, they're not in. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that could be stressful for sure. What I do usually when I'm trying to schedule time with people is I send them I send them a note, an email, typically with 3 or 4 suggested times, days and times, and you probably do this already, and ask them if any of those work for them, and usually we can find one if there's enough options given, and if 3 or 4 isn't enough, then I'll give them like 5 or 6. Say, okay, do any of these overlap with all of your calendars? And eventually we come to a consensus on something that works. But yeah, definitely a challenge. The Calendly tool might help though. Check it out online. So I do want to switch gears here. Stigma is something that is really it actually makes me very sad, and so I really want to spend a few minutes talking about it. It's discrimination, really, and it's discriminating against someone who is ill or is facing a mental health challenge. And it makes them feel shame. And I've got there. It's also reported that, and the statistic is quite high, that people who have a mental illness, so say they have major depression, or they have depression, or they have anxiety, or maybe they have panic attacks, or they have a social phobia. There's lots of these different things that people can be experiencing. What they report is actually the discrimination or stigma against them that they feel or see exhibited is worse than the illness. And, that's the part that makes me really sad about this. Because if you think of it, if somebody is struggling and they're ill, as if they had cancer, or as if they had multiple sclerosis, or, a bad back or a broken leg or whatever it is, um, but they're feeling shame because of it, it's awful. And 48%, there's that statistic, are reluctant to disclose to a boss or like a manager or a coworker that they're experiencing a mental illness because they're afraid that their career will be impacted by it. They'll be thought less of, and it's an awful thing. Now, there's been a lot of really good work done, over the last several years, quite a few years. A lot more people are coming forward. We've got Olympians, we've got Silken Laumann, the Olympic rower, we've got Muhammad Ali, we've got more recently Kate and Harry, um, and Prince Harry, and we have ordinary folks coming forward as well. There's a ton of celebrities and famous people, but aside from that, there's CEOs that are really taking a lot of and small business owners. There's a lot of people who are talking about mental health, and it doesn't mean that people have to disclose their most private things. It's not about that. It's just opening up the conversation about it and making it safe and okay to talk about mental health, making it normal to talk about mental health, just like it is physical health. Health is health, mental health is health. And it's so important to keep this conversation going. And I'm so glad you're here today, because that means you're doing something about it yourself. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. Um, I have inner versus external there. And what I mean by that is the external is sort of what I've been talking about now. It's like, okay, people are discriminating against others in different ways by just their body language, by their behavior, by their avoidance of the whole topic, even when they know someone is ill. Sometimes they don't know what to say. It couldn't just be their reaction to them. Could be words they're saying, things they're saying. But the inner one is also extremely important. And it's self-stigmatization actually. And what I mean is it's that voice in your head, that awful little voice saying, what did I snap out of this? Like, what's the matter with me? You know, so and so, was down a little while ago. Now look at them. They're fine. They're getting on with life. Why can't I? I don't know. I don't really know what's wrong with me. There's something like, what can I shake it off? You know, and of course, all that's wrong. It's wrong thinking. It's incorrect. We can't shake off anxiety any more than we can shake off cancer. It's ridiculous when you think of it. When you think of it in those terms, we can't. It's impossible. It's an illness. So, and I've got there, it's invisible. And so sometimes it's invisible, sometimes it's not. It often is though. And so people can't see that we're ill. And so it's worse because, so some people hide it then because they know people can't tell. And so they just go through life and they, try to manage. And it's very sad because, they could be one of those, 80% of people that recover and go on to have a healthy, productive, happy life. But they don't because of the fear of what people will think. So there's a lot that we can do about that, and just being here and talking about it is a really big step. So I often ask people what do they think resiliency is before I get to this, but it's already there. So resiliency is the capacity to bounce back. You're able to get over things and get back to the way you were before, or pretty close to it. It's the way to overcome things that are adversities, and get on with things and feel good. Um, and so I also want to mention that when I'm talking about mental health and all of these things, and when I'm saying there's things that we can do, um, it is positive. But I also want to say it's not that Pollyanna, we're all walking around with huge smiles on our face, because that's really not life. Life is sometimes that actually. It is wonderful. And it is, you're walking around with this huge grin on your face. Other times it's like it's up and down, and but generally speaking, if it can be positive and if you can be resilient, then that's really what I'm talking about. And you'll feel good, you'll have good mental health and all of those things. So, but I just wanted to point out, I'm not saying we're all walking around, with these huge grins on our face always, although sometimes we can. So let's take a closer look at resiliency. Again, this is something that has been studied for quite some time. And even pre-COVID, actually, a lot of companies were bringing in resiliency trainers to do training with their workforces around resiliency, because they understood how important it is to have a resilient workforce, have resilient teams, for them themselves as business to be resilient. So this is something that, as I say, there's been a ton of research done on, and it's really great because they've identified these four traits that most people with resiliency have. So confidence is the first one. And it's that feeling that, no matter what is going on in life, no matter what comes up, because things do come up, as we all know, that they'll be able to cope with it. It's their ability to cope with it, and it's their ability to feel confident that they will get through it, and they'll be able to deal with it. The next one I have there is purpose. So people have a clear sense of themselves, clear, values and drive and that kind of thing. And they establish realistic goals. And I've underlined realistic because, if we think back, 2019, before this happened, and of course, I talk about this all the time, way before COVID. So, but just using this as an example, we probably set some pretty lofty goals, as business owners, and, big corporations, if we think of that, they set, pretty big goals. But a resilient person and a resilient business owner is going to go back to those goals and say, there's no way, there's no way that these can be met now. I'm going to I'm going to look at these, and I'm going to reset them. I'm going to establish different goals for myself so that I can feel still like I'm moving forward, and that I'll be successful But there's no way I can meet those. And this isn't about somebody that is just going along and not meeting their goals, so they reduce their goals. That's not it. It's just that when something happens that's outside of our control, they'll go back and reset those so that they're realistic. Social support is extremely important and one of the key elements of someone who is resilient. So building good relationships, seeking support. I'm going to talk about the relationships in a couple more minutes too, but seeking support and nurturing themselves. Resilient people know that that old adage or wrong way of thinking that it's strong people don't need help, and if you go and get help you're weak. They know that's not true, because it's not true. They will get the help they need because they don't want to go through life feeling awful and being sick. So they're going to go and get the help they need. They're going to take care of themselves and nurture themselves, whatever in whatever way that means for them. They're also going to be flexible, and as things change, they're going to be able to cope with it and know how to do that and change with the changing situation. And the last point I have there is optimism. And this is a key element of resiliency as well. And it's just looking at the world with an optimistic lens and focusing on the positive things where we can and hanging on to them, really hanging on to those positive things, and focusing in on them and recognizing them and those kinds of things. So the good thing about resiliency is it is innate in some people. Like, you're born like that, and whether you have blue eyes or brown, you're resilient or you're not resilient. So some people are born with it, which is wonderful. But or some people may have a certain level of resiliency. But for people that don't have resiliency, that is not feeling resilient at all, you can build these skills. So these are things that people can learn and work on. There's wonderful books out there, there's training. We could definitely talk about it more, but there's other people too that have been working in this area for a long time, like Brene Brown. She has podcasts, she has books out. There's a wealth of information, so people that are not resilient can learn these skills and become resilient and have a certain level of that. So here are some things, though, that you can work on to build them. So building and maintaining positive relationships. Um, so you might think, well, yeah, I have positive relationships, and I've built relationships my whole life. I've got them, but it takes time and effort to keep them active and to keep them developing and that kind of thing. I have a really good friend that I've actually known for a long time, like probably 30 years, and she lives alone, and wonderful friend. And so you could say, well, yeah, I've built that relationship, but I hadn't talked to her for 2 or 3 weeks, and here it is in COVID, and I hadn't talked to her, and again, she lives alone, so I gave her a call. And I felt so much better. So it was good for my mental health. It was good for her mental health. We had a great chat. We got all caught up. We're back, talking to each other on a, a couple times a week basis and that kind of thing, texting and stuff. But my point here is that it takes time to maintain good relationships and to make them meaningful, and to help us with our resiliency and our mental health, because it is one of the key elements of it. So if you've got these great relationships that you've built over time, whether it's family, friends, colleagues, anyone, then it's think about where you are with that. If you need a reach out or whatever it is, maybe a Zoom meeting, a Zoom catch up. I talked about optimism, and that's what this is. Is your glass half full, or is it actually half empty? If your glass is half empty, you are going to really struggle with having resiliency. And I'm talking a lot about resiliency because it is a main factor of positive mental health. and it's something we can work on. So if your glass is half full, you're going to be focusing on those positive things in life and trying to work on them and improve them, make them more positive, that kind of thing. And it's something that is very important. Check your reaction to change. A lot of people don't like change. We don't like change. It's like, oh, I was enjoying things the way they were. But, there's always change. Way before COVID came along, whether it's a new system at work, maybe you're introducing something new in your company and, you're dealing with that change yourself. Maybe it's things that are going on outside of work, but there's always change. And some of it is done to us. Some of it we do ourselves. I'm going to change this. And, but even so, it can be stressful. How do you accept it though, or how do you influence it if it's something that you didn't control or you didn't do? Because it's important. So say something happens that is outside of your control, so you cannot actually influence that. And so a resilient person is going to say, okay, I can't influence that. I'm not going to focus on it. I know it's over here and I know I need to deal with it, and I am dealing with it. But it's not something that I'm in a position to have any say in or influence. I'm going to focus on all these things that I can control and I can influence, and I can, I can focus on the positives and my family, my friends, my hobbies, my work, where I can move that forward, those kinds of things. If it's sometimes it not related to COVID, obviously, but sometimes it's a change that you might be able to influence a little bit. So see if you can, it's like, okay, this is the way it is, but what if we could do a little bit, input this into this process, or this action, or this whatever it is. Sometimes you can input some of your own into something, your own thoughts, your own, the thing that you would like, the way you'd like it to be. And sometimes you're able to do that. And in that way, you feel like you've influenced it a bit and you're able to cope with it better. So sometimes that can happen, and that's great too. But recognize the times that you cannot. You're not in a position to do that, and focus on the other things. So I talked about setting smaller achievable goals, and but what I didn't mention yet is celebrating results. And again, that can have a huge impact. And it doesn't have to be anything, big or elaborate. It can be, and maybe later when we can go out and celebrate in restaurants and those kinds of things, we'll do all those things again. But it can even just be sharing it. So we have business owners here today. And so if you've accomplished something, even just telling someone, like, I got this done, I feel so good, or I'm about to launch this, or when we can reopen, I'm focusing on launching this new product or service, or, food, dish on the menu, or whatever it is. Just talk about it. And that's celebrating in and of itself. Sharing with other people something that you're happy about that you accomplished is really impactful, and it improves our resiliency. Taking care of yourself, I'll talk about this a bit more. And it's probably one of those things like, yeah, I know I'm supposed to take care of myself, but there's a lot of information and these are all research. These are all real things that boost our resiliency. And healthy eating, physical exercise, all these wonderful things are key. And so that's why we're talking about these things a lot, and we will. There's a quiz here you can take when I send these slides over, and I think it lets you take it a couple times before they want you to pay or something, but it has really interesting questions. And you can then gauge where you believe your resiliency is. There's other things online, and again, there's as I said, podcasts and books and things like that too. But resiliency is a really neat thing that when you start working on it and improve your resiliency, how effective it really is. So here's 10 ways to improve your mental health. So before we were talking specifically about we were talking specifically about stress. And so I was saying, here's 8 ways to bring your stress levels down. And some of them can be immediate in the moment and other things you can work on. Here's just 10 things you can work on to improve your mental health. And so these are all in line with, there's something called, it's a big mouthful. It's called it's the National Standard of Canada for Psychological Health and Safety in the Workplace. And it is a framework that I've actually certified in to work with companies on. And these are all in line with that and sort of taken from this standard. So these are all official. 10 ways to improve your mental health. So physical activity, we know this. We know that, you release those wonderful endorphins and all these, deeper things than that are happening in our bodies and in our brains when we have some physical activity. Anybody here having problems fitting that in during COVID? I know I used to like going to the yoga studio or Pilates. So I've started doing different things at home, but I know a lot of people have struggled with fitting in some activity. But even if you have been able to fit in, if you can fit in 7 or 8 minutes, 10 minutes, you know, 15 if you can, but just a few minutes a day or every other day, it will actually work wonders for your mental health as well as your physical health. The next one is really interesting, and you might say, yeah, I know I'm supposed to eat healthy. My mom told me that a long time ago. True. But what I didn't know a long time ago is that the mental health is connected to our biome. So it's connected to our gut health, which is extremely interesting to me. And if you want to read up on that, there's a lot of great information out there. But our mental health is actually connected to that, to our gut health. And so what we put in our bodies is extremely important as it relates to mental health, not only physical health. So, and there's also studies and research that's been done that prove there's early onset of Alzheimer's and dementia and things like that. Sometimes, of course, there's other things, but sometimes attributed to a really unhealthy diet. So if you got somebody that's eating fast foods all their whole life, basically processed fast foods, the research is showing that some of that can be attributed to if they're diagnosed with some of these early onset mental illnesses, it's sometimes attributed to that, or in part. So something to think about. Meditate and mindfulness. So these are two different things, but and again, I'd be interested to know if anyone is practicing these. I do a little bit of each one of these. And I used to think, especially for meditating, you had to sit there, with your arms crossed and your legs crossed, for 40 minutes or at least a half hour or something like that. And have nothing at all in your mind. And, I tried it a few times. I fell asleep and it was really not working for me. But if you can do that, and if you're good at that, then that's wonderful. And that will be very impactful. Other things, though, are apps. Like I use some, and I'll share those with you, or just doing it on your own. But you can do it for 5 minutes, which is amazing, or 2 minutes. And you can do a guided one through the apps, or you can do just, you can do it on your own. But the research has shown that even doing it just for a very, very short period of time can really improve your mental health. So that's good to know, because it doesn't take long, but it can really have an impact on your mental health positively. So mindfulness is different. And again, this is something that companies have been doing. They've been bringing in trainers to teach their employees on mindfulness and meditation, because they understand the real benefits of doing it, and how it really works. So mindfulness is being present in the moment. And so I do this sometimes throughout the day. I can't do it all day. I mean, there's just no way. But if I'm doing something, even for 5 or 10 minutes, I'll try to be mindful while I'm doing it, like thinking of what you're doing while you're doing it. So if you're eating an apple, you can eat an apple and surf at the same time or watch TV, and that you're barely knowing you're actually eating an apple. But if you're doing it with mindfulness, and thinking about it and chewing and, enjoying it, enjoying the flavor and the texture. It is extremely helpful for our mental health. So another thing to check out is mindfulness. See your doctor regularly, and that can be for physical or mental health. But just knowing you're healthy or if you're not, getting the care that you need is extremely important. Um, People can still see their doctors virtually or in person during COVID, so that's something that we can still do. The next one is I've sort of put these in its own little category. In my mind, they kind of go together. Prioritizing, organizing, and delegating tasks where you can. So prioritizing is, what you want to get done, and don't make it unrealistic, which I know I've done in the past. It's like, I'm going to do this, 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 and this, but no, make it realistic. And so that you can accomplish things and in the priority that you need to get them done. And it feels so good to check those things off or click them off or whatever it is, so that you can move forward, and know that you've accomplished something, and you've accomplished something you needed to get done because you prioritized it. Organized is the same thing. So where you can organize things in at work, in your life, but particularly at work, again, it's going to help you move forward. It's like, okay, I want to get this done. I'm organizing this. I'm organizing how I'm thinking in terms of my the things that I want to do in my company. I need my budget. I need my plan. I need, the tasks I'm going to do to accomplish those things. All of those things will make your mental health so much better. And delegating where we can. So as small business owners, we may not have anyone to delegate to in the work context, but you may use some services from time to time, like a virtual assistant or a bookkeeper or someone like that. Or if not those things, it may be asking someone at home, can you go get can you take my car in, or can you cut the grass? Can you take now that we have grass, can you take the dog out? Can you load the dishwasher? Delegate a bit. I think sometimes we let things pile up on our own shoulders, but if we even just took one of them off, it's like, oh, that feels good. That feels better, so those are the kinds of things to think about and do where you can. Um, so balance work and life, and sometimes I talk more now about integrating work and life. And it depends on your industry, and it depends on where you are, in that. Because when restaurants are open, for example, you can't very well get up and leave and go and do something. If you're working from home, you may be able to, go and take care of something that you need to take care of during the workday, and then come back and finish your workday. You're still being very productive. Obviously, we all need to be productive and get things done and accomplished and move forward and all of those great things. So, but sometimes taking care of those things throughout the day to incorporate, where we can, our lives and our work lives and our home lives is very good for mental health. And so give that some thought in terms of what works for you in your industry and what will, post-COVID. Because we have to think of beyond where we are right now. So seek support from family and friends. That's what we're here for. Just like we would like to be there for our family and friends, they're also there for us as well. Attend support groups and, access self-help materials. I mentioned that a few minutes ago. So there's a lot of self-help groups online now, and so if that's something that might help someone, then that's wonderful that they're still there even online. And of course, they usually meet in person, and maybe they will post-COVID. Self-help materials, I will give you a lot of really good ones that are from credible sources. Of course, we have to always watch the source, and there's a lot of stuff online. But anyways, I'm going to give you a lot of great stuff. So check in with yourself is the next one. And I just want to say, we don't often do that. We may be going through life and feeling anxious and even thinking, I'm so anxious, or I'm so stressed. I'm so stressed. But if we just take a breath and say, you know, how am I really feeling? How is my mental health? Am I okay? Or, I'm actually feeling really good. Whatever it is, just stop and think about it and ask yourself, how am I? And there's some more tools to do that too officially, like to do a test. But even just ask yourself that in the moment, how am I feeling? We talked about seeking care and treatment, and so I won't go over that again, but it's so important to get the help you need if you need it. I'm going to switch gears here just for a moment to talk about what managers can do. And I'm not sure if anyone here is at the point where they have employees, but in terms of if you're thinking of growing and having employees, scaling to that level in the future. Okay, so someone does, yes. That's great. How many employees do you have? Just curious. Okay, 3. Good. So this is what these are some things that employers are doing and can do. Again, it's aligned to the national standard for psychological health and safety, and they are things that employers can do. And even if you work on 1 or 2 of these, that's a really great step in the right direction. It's also things employees are looking for. So employees are also really aware now of mental health. And so, and of all ages, it's not just, millennials or, the Z or the whatever, just different generations or the boomers. It's actually everybody, because who doesn't want to work in a mentally healthy environment? So just moving on, let's take a look at what those are. So to foster a mentally healthy workplace, you want to have positive culture. So if there's negativity, you want to, take a look at that, what's causing negativity, and turn that around to have a positive work environment. Nobody wants to work in an environment that's negative, nor does the business owner. Talk about mental health openly, just embed it into the culture. The same way we have physical health and safety in workplaces, which has been embedded pretty much, which is great. We want to embed mental health into the culture. I'm not going to go over all of these, because we've talked about a lot of them in the flip side of it, but we want to have physical health and safety for ourselves, so employers would be should also offer that and encourage that. So there's lots of different things employers can do around that are, some of them are no cost or very low cost. So we don't have to have huge budgets to have this mental health in the workplace. Balancing workloads and offering flexibility, of course, is extremely important. You don't want to overload someone with way too much um, work so that they can't get it done or they can't do a good job on it. Their stress levels will go really high. And you want to offer flexibility in terms of the way they can work, where they can work if it's possible in the industry, and that kind of thing. Include them in decision making where you can. It's not always possible, but where you can involve them, say, what do you think of that? Or how do you think we should do this? It's really good to be able to do that. Offer benefits if that's in the budget. It's not always, which is okay, because there's lots of other things that we can do, other resources. So you want to say thankful to people. You want to be thankful, make them feel valued and supported, and communicate openly and often. And if there is if there's anything around harassment or toxicity in the workplace, you want to deal with that immediately. Don't let it go on. I mean, we've seen a few examples of that in the government recently, but it is in unfortunately a lot of different organizations, and some organizations are doing a wonderful job now about having these really good policies and practices in place around this now, and other companies still need to do some work on that. But it is definitely something that needs addressed immediately if you are aware of something like that. So let's talk about the mental health toolkit, and you will get these slides so you can take a look at these yourself. Oh yeah, show don't tell. Sure, sure. So show don't tell, all I mean by that is, employees don't appreciate just being told, can you do it this way? I just, if they say something about, it's like, I don't want to hear about that. Just do it the way I asked you to do it, and part of that is the tone you're saying it in, but you can also say that in a nice way, but they still don't want, to hear that. People want to be included. So so show them the way. So, okay, this is the way we're going to be doing this, and here's why, and let me show you how, let me walk through this with you. It's that kind of thing. It's not, okay, here's this, and can you please do it this way? And if they try to say something, it's like, no, just can you just do it this way, please? This is the way we're doing it from now on. You know, people don't want to, they want to be included, they want to be heard. So thank you. So if and it's all within balance, right? So it's all of these things are in balance. So when I'm saying communicate openly and fairly, include them in decision making where you can, and show don't tell, it's within the right context, it's within the right balance of doing all of those things, because you can't have the employees running the company either, right? So, but you listen to them. And if you can't implement something that they would like you to implement, explain why. Sorry, we can't, but here's why we can't. And does that make sense to you? And, maybe we can look at it again later on, or we can jig it this way or that, so that maybe, that kind of thing. So these are really good. Take a look at them. They're for people in all different stages of life. So we've got like Good to Talk, which is a great tool for folks, for post-secondary students, and it's mainly by text, or it can be by text. We've got the Kids Help Phone. It's an amazing program, and is really helpful for children. We've got People for Adults. And so these ones are all government ones, all of these up here, but the Cloud MD is actually a virtual care company that provides mental health services, and that you pay for. But during COVID, they have made it at no cost for Ontario and BC. So they're a great company, a well-regarded company, who have no cost resources for you. Check Up from the Neck Up is really good because it's an assessment that you can take. It's confidential. You can take it as many times as you want. And, so you may do it now, and you may do it, 2 months from now or whenever, and see how you're feeling and how that is different. And if you'll get a report, and if the report is not positive, you can take that report and give it to your doctor and say, I did this, can we talk about this? And I'd like to get some help. So different things like that. Breathe to Relax is the one that is, it's really cool. It does the deep breathing with you, and you can program it different ways, however you'd like. I'll skip over a couple of these because you can take a look at them yourself, so that we don't, I know that we're getting on in time. I told you I'd share with you what works for me around sleep. So I use Calm and Headspace, and actually another one that's not on here is called Sleepiest, and it's really cool too. So you can use these for um, for meditation or for mindfulness, at any point during the day. But what I really like about them too is they have sleep stories. And so the sleep stories is, you start listening to a story. It can be about, there's so many different things, fiction or nonfiction. And I start listening to them, and they just make me fall asleep. I don't even know how they end. So I would highly recommend those to you if you want to give those a try. Same thing here. There's a lot of great things. So Pay It Forward, there's two here, two different companies, and it's on the concept of a daily act of kindness. And that is very positive for our mental health. If you want to do yoga anywhere, even just for 5 minutes, you can try Pocket Yoga. And the rest of these are really great resources and tools, and has a lot of research materials and that kind of thing, if you would like to read about any of those. And actually, I'll point out the Wellness Together Canada. So Wellness Together Canada was put together in response to COVID-19, and it is a wealth of information, but it also offers no cost virtual mental health care. So they'll put you in touch with a therapist. So those are some really good things that you can take a look at. and I believe we've come to the end. So we can, I'll stop sharing so we can go back and be together as we close out. But if you'd like to connect with me, there's all those different ways to connect with me, and or give me a call if you'd like to chat a little bit further. And
Great.
with that, I will
Oh,
say thank you. Okay, stop sharing.
great. Thanks, Julie. That was very informative. I know I took a few notes, and we'll definitely try some of the suggestions that you've made. Thanks everyone for joining. Please, we have a few minutes, if that's okay, Julie, to stay if anyone has any questions or even ideas. I know we mentioned it before, but if you have some ideas that has been working for you, this is a
Yeah,
great time to share too. I know for me, giving myself permission to take breaks is one of the hardest things because when you're a goer and you're always going, eventually you get burnt out.
yeah,
I know since COVID started, we were just going and like in sprint mode. And it felt like you were never ending. And then it's a time to sit back and go, no, this is a marathon. I need to pace myself and do all of that to survive. So giving
yeah.
myself permission was a hard thing to do, but I'm
So
trying.
good point. Yeah, really good point, Laura. Thank you. Yeah, and we've been giving ourselves permission, and like during all this change, like as you said, it's been a sprint, and we've been doing all this stuff, and facing a ton of change at the same time. And so, yeah, we have to give ourselves permission to take those breaks and work on our hobbies, and that's part of the work-life balance is also, family, friends, pets and all that, but also hobbies. There's lots of things that we can do online or not online. But I know of people that, used to go, like I know of someone that used to go take a ballet class, for example, and then she hadn't been doing it for a long, long time, and they finally started doing it. They'd get together on Zoom and have their ballet class. So you can do so many cool things.
That's great. And it's giving your permission to not also be as active maybe as you were before, right? So
Yeah,
it's hard. I mean, I would always give myself like a race to try and I would sign up for a race and that would motivate me. So now it's like, okay, I'm just going to bike for pleasure, right?
yeah,
Like just to keep moving rather
yes,
than trying to maybe excel during this time. So
yeah.
it's being
That's
creative. Someone did ask about when you're discussing these things with your staff. Do you do it separately together? Maybe you could give ideas on topics you can do as your group to your staff, and then maybe certain things that you would do individually.
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, so I'm working with a company, and they're a manufacturer, actually. This is just an example. So they're a manufacturer, and so they would get together and they do a huddle, to talk about what's going on. And they would do ergonomic, stretches for carpal tunnel. So they'd stand around and do that, and just loosen up and all that as they're talking about what is happening and what they're going to accomplish. And so I said, well, how about introducing mental health into that? So you're talking about physical health and you're doing something about physical health, but as you're talking about, we've got to get this out. We've got this big order that's due for a client. We've got so and so's out, out sick. We've got this new employee starting, and but we're going to get it done. I'm feeling a little, anxious about it, but we're a great group. We're a great team. We're going to get it done. How's everybody feeling? Like it's a way to it's a great way to open the conversation about mental health. You're not sharing deep information about, an illness or anything like that. It's like I'm feeling a little, anxious about it, but I know we're going to get it done. It's giving people permission to talk openly about mental health. So it's things like that. Or even just opening up the conversation differently. Like, hey, I went to this webinar the other day, and it was on mental health. And so, there's a few things we talked about, and I just thought I'd ask everyone, how are you feeling? Mental health is mental health is part of health. And so, aside from our physical health, and we get tired and all that, at work, how's everybody feeling? Just in a general way, because you're not prying. So, and then if you need to speak to someone individually, if there is an issue, if you see signs that someone may be struggling, or if they're telling you they're struggling, that's a different conversation, and that's something that's very separate. And that there's a lot of things you need to know about that because, for example, as an employer, you can't ask a diagnosis. You can't ask treatment or, what doctor they're seeing because the diagnosis is confidential. What you can ask are things around functionality. What can I do to support you? What can you do? Do you need something? How can I help you, with this? Without getting into the diagnosis and those kinds of things. So, but generally speaking, just opening up the conversation to everyone around just talking about mental health is really, really great, really important.
That's wonderful. We do have another question about how do you deal with triggers that give you anxiety when others give you comments or put downs in a negative way?
Well, if you have a trigger, first of all, it's the first step, of course, is recognizing it. So if you have a trigger, then again, it's something that you can talk to someone about. Okay, I know, unless you can sort it out yourself. Sometimes it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to do this, I'm going to do that because it will help me. Like I actually get panic attacks on big highways, ones that have like the 401, where it's like 16 lanes across. Um, and so I can't drive on those highways. I can drive on smaller highways, though. I've figured out a way that I can control that. And so I don't get panic attacks on smaller ones, but they have to be, it's very specific. So I know it's a trigger for me. And so I know what to do around that. Um, if you can identify your trigger and have that, a simple solution, great. But if it's something you could talk to a therapist about it, and I'm sure they'd have great advice for you around that and how to get past that or how to overcome or that kind of thing. What was the second part of that
Well,
question?
I think the challenge is too with that, with the comments and put down, some of the stuff we have control over and we can be creative, but when we're in a work environment, sometimes we can't escape maybe a colleague that is putting you down or things like that. What could be the steps that you could manage that?
Well, actually, that should be reported to the manager or owner, escalate it up because that should definitely not be allowed to happen in a workplace. And so it is incumbent upon, the manager or the owner of the company or HR, whatever, but we're talking about smaller companies here. So it should be reported officially to the right source, and that person has to take action. If they don't take action, you can go to the Human Rights Commission and lodge a complaint there, and they'll do a proper investigation.
And I think that that's really important because no one has to put up with that, right?
No, you do not
Um,
have to. No, there's
yeah.
laws against it.
Mm. You know what? The last question there is probably going to be a bigger question. I would recommend reaching out to you, Julie,
Yeah, absolutely.
individually if you have more questions, because I think this is a further and very specialized answer that is required for this. So I want to wrap
Sure.
this up, but really, Julie, amazing time. Thank you for staying a little longer and being a part of this discussion and sharing with us your expertise on this. So thank you.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, and thanks for everyone for joining. It's great.
Wonderful. Well, go out and enjoy the sunshine.
Yes, it's supposed to be a nice sunny day
I
today.
hope. I
I
hope it
know.
is.
I know.
Okay.
Me too. Thanks, Laura.
Thanks very much. We'll talk to you soon.